Only a few weeks away before those all-important fantasy playoffs. What's going on, Dustin? Welcome to Fantasy Smack Talk. Let's talk about those must-adds that can help you get into those playoffs. We'll start with running back. All you Foster owners, definitely a tough break. But there's still some leagues, surprisingly, where Ben Tate is available in. So, at this point, absolute must-add. You got to get this guy on your team if he's available. We've seen what he can do in the past when he's given a chance to play. He's still available in about 30% of leagues or so he's out there, get him on your team. Same with Andre Brown, another guy that you just really got to get on your team if he's out there. He was picked up in a lot of leagues heading up into Week 10. He's only about 50% of leagues at this point, and he played great Week 10. The Giants have definitely been looking for someone to step up at running back. Hillis and Brandon Jacobs aren't really the answer. Andre Brown's a guy that was definitely a lot of hype around him coming into the year. Then he had the injury, but now he's back, ready to go, looked good. He's going to be the one to own from here on out. Few must-add receivers. Aaron Dobson's the first guy. I talked about him a lot over the last month or so. How Tompkins is pretty much out of the picture now. Dobson's the guy to own. He was on a bye last week, so that's why he didn't get picked up in more leagues, but only on 55% of leagues right now. He needs to get picked up in a lot more leagues moving forward. He and Brady really seem to be on the same page. Boykin's another guy I'm going to call a must-add in all leagues because he was actually dropped in a lot of leagues after the Rodgers injury. Obviously the passing situation isn't going to be as good as when Rodgers is in there, but Boykin's a high upside receiver that you can just put on your bench until Rodgers comes back. It still really very much looks like Rodgers is going to be back this year, probably right before the fantasy playoffs, so Boykin can definitely still help you this year. Don't drop him. Put him on your bench, and if he did get dropped, pick him up, put him on your bench, and wait him out. Because he even had a good game, even with Rodgers out in Week 10. And then Riley Cooper, you got to add this guy in all leagues at this point. One thing, there's something to be said about a new quarterback coming in and finding a new favorite receiver. You can look at what's happening in Houston with Case Keenum. He's putting Andre Johnson back on the map as far as the fantasy map goes. You got the quarterback situation in Philly, switched over to Foles, and now Riley Cooper is apparently his favorite target. So sometimes a quarterback change can change the dynamic of how the passes get distributed, and Cooper's looked great. This guy needs to be owned in all leagues at this point. Let's talk about some people to add in deeper leagues. Chris Ivory's a guy I wanted to talk about. Only on about 55% of leagues right now. He's coming off of his bye. It's still kind of a mess between him and Powell on who's going to get the work each week, but over the last 3 weeks or so, Ivory's definitely looked like the superior runner. I think he's going to be the guy to own from here on out. But that's why I'm only calling must-add in deeper leagues, just because there is still that question mark. Rashad Jennings is a guy I think that's must-add in deeper leagues. McFadden has been awful again this year, and honestly, I think there's even a chance Jennings is a big part of that offense when McFadden comes back. So I think Jennings is a guy that you need to add in more leagues. He's looked decent over the last couple of weeks, and they might not even rush McFadden back as long as Jennings is playing as good as he is. Mark Ingram's a guy that's going to get a lot of attention this week. He's only owned in about 15% of leagues. I was actually surprised he's owned in that many leagues, but he looked really good Week 10. He was almost a running back possessed running out there. But here's the thing. Pick him up, stash him, that's fine, but it's always been a mess with the Saints running back situation. You still got Pierre Thomas, you still got Sproles. Ingram's just going to be too inconsistent, but as far as really deep leagues, if you're just looking for a decent running back that you should put on your bench with a little bit of upside, Ingram's a guy that you're going to want to take a look at. Brian Leonard's another guy you might consider adding in deeper leagues. Mike James was looking really good Monday night, went down with an ankle injury. They called him out fairly early in the game, which normally means the injury is somewhat significant. So Mike James' Week 11 stat is very much up in the air. With Martin already out for the year, Brian Leonard's in line for some extra touches. He's decent, he's not great, but just because of how many touches he's going to get if James misses any games, Leonard needs to be added in a lot of leagues. So right now I'm calling him must-add in deeper leagues until we know the extent of the James injury. But if James is out a couple of weeks, Leonard's going to be a guy you're going to own in all leagues. Tavon Austin's the next guy I want to talk about. I actually would call Tavon Austin a must-add in all leagues almost. It's really close. It was kind of fluky what he did Week 10. He wasn't out on the field that much, but he obviously had some really big plays. But this might be the beginning of the Rams figuring out how they want to use their rookie receiver, or it's just going to be a fluky game. But, I mean, obviously the upside's there. He had a great game. I think he's a must-add in pretty much all leagues, just to see if he can keep it up. One guy to keep an eye on is Scott Tolzien for the Packers. I mean, here's the thing. He's going to make mistakes, but there's still a lot of weapons on that offense. I think he could be serviceable while Aaron Rodgers is out. So really deep leagues or 2 quarterback leagues, if you're looking for a decent guy to just plug in over the next couple of weeks and maybe get you in the playoffs, he's a guy that could have some value. And kind of on the flip side of that, my pick up and play defense is the Giants for Week 11. While I do think Tolzien could have some big plays, I think he might do something Week 11. I still think the Giants defense can force some mistakes. On our weekly show, my Giants defense were my deep sleeper because I like their chances against Oakland. They were coming off the bye. They looked good. They had a solid defensive performance. So I like them only on 30% of leagues, Week 11, as a decent pickup and play if you're looking for a defense. So this is just a portion of the list. See the full list, get onto the website. And as always, if you got any questions, post them in the forum.